Hello. Okay, let's get started. So again, list, we can access it with this link. Just like the lab before, I will cut the recording to small slices so you can easily find each part. The question 3 to 5 to a 5 minutes recording. So you can easily find the solution for each exercise. And you don't need to search through the recording, whole recording. Okay, then let's have a look of the exercise today. So the first stuff we need to learn is about the DNS stuff. Some students may have some trouble on understanding the DNS. So I will explain what is DNS right now. Yeah. Assume this is our PC and we want to observe google.com. So what will be happen if we type google.com in our browser? And you may think, probably we will just send a link, send a request. to the Google server, and the Google server will respond to us. But actually, it's not right. You may think probably this is our computer. We will send the request, HTTP request, directly to the Google server. But how can we know what is the IP address of Google server? Because we type google.com, right? So our computer does not know the IP address, but only know the URL of the Google server. So we need another server to tell us what is the IP address to the Google server. So that's what happened first. We will send a request to the DNS server at first and ask what is the IP address of this URL, and the DNS will tell us, the IP address of Google server is like this, and then we can finally reach the Google server. So that is does it make sense? Because we are using URL, the domain name, to like visit the Google server. So our computer does not know what is the IP address of this URL. So we need to ask someone at first and then go to the IP address. That's how DNS works. And yeah, in the exercise here, we can find a wiki link of the DNS records types. So in this lab, we will just have a look of the DNS server. So how can we do the DNS query with the DNS server? And yeah, and what is the detail of the request and response? Here, yeah, just have a look of it. You don't need to remember all the thing. Just have a look of each table. Nothing is very important. Just make sure you can you know how to search this kind of stuff. For example, you can find something on the response with 4A. So what does this mean? Then you can have a look of the table is IPv6 address. Okay, and for the single A is IPv4 address. Yeah, I think that's all we need to know. Then the type of DNS. I think we can explain it later because when we use it, it's much easier to understand. So we just skip the exercise 1 for now. We got a question here. How can we know whether the DNS serve our PC send request to the local DNS server? So what do you mean by that? I mean, how can we find the right DNS server? So how can we reach this DNS server here? Yeah. So probably you may think, how can we find this DNS server? Because we have a root DNS server. So there's, as we can know, there are lots of DNS servers. So how can we find the right DNS server? Because the DNS server, they have a link with each other. So there is another DNS server here, so which know the Google server's IP address like this. So at first step, we will go to the root DNS server, and the root DNS server can like help us to find the next server who may have the records of the Google server. Then we will go to the next one and do the request. And finally, we will find a DNS server which has the IP address of Google server. So don't worry too much. We will have a like detail. We will know the details later on the exercise and see how it works. Let's just skip the exercise 1 for now. And the exercise 2. I don't think I have much thing to say because this exercise is pretty easy. The DNS use UDP. Do you know the reason? As we know, the UDP link is not reliable, right? Compared to the TCP. And let's see the source port is here. I don't think we have a lot of question here, right? So probably we just go to the mark 1. Now let me open the link. Yeah, so before we go to the exercise 3, I want to run the dig command for you. So we can have a look how dig command looks like. So make sure you are running the command under the lab environment here. And yeah, just type a dig command, then you can see some outputs here. Just run the dig. So let's have a look of the how can we use the dig command. The first thing we need to have a look of is the flags here. So the flags is very important because one of the question we'll ask about it. So you can have a look of the dig command flag in the internet, but yeah, I will share something here. Here, a quick note of it. So what is QR means? It's a query or a response. So it will specify this message is a query or response. And the RD, what is RD? Just read through it. And the most important thing is the AA, this one, this stuff. So if we can find the AA inside the flags, which means it's an like authoritative answer from official domain name server. So which means we can trust this result, right? Because there may have some hacker made up some fake DNS information, so which will lead us to the wrong server. For example, here is the fake DNS server here. For example, a bad guy creates a wrong DNS, fake DNS server, which point to his own server as a fake Google server. So you may connect it to this server and send all the information to this server, probably including your personal information and the password. So if someone can uh, make out a fake DNS server, then you may have some trouble because your computer will not know we are going to a wrong IP address and send all the information, privacy information into the wrong IP address. Yeah, but it's really hard to do it. So and here are the things we can use it to specify is it an official answer or not. Because if it's not from an official server, the answer may be wrong. So if you are from mainland China, so you have experiencing the similar stuff. So the government will do the DNS pollution, which means they will point a lot of server, including the Facebook, YouTube, to a wrong IP address. So you cannot access this kind of website if you are in the mainland China, because they just do the domain name server pollution. Okay. Let's have a look of exercise 3. Could you please explain the question 3? Okay, of course. This one. Right? Is it the same? Uh, so first we will send the DNS request to this. Yeah, so probably I need to open the trace file. So the first step, we need to download the file, right? I will open it in the VLab. Just give me a sec. Okay. So in exercise 2, uh, And then we can observe, is there any DNS stuff? So we apply a filter in here. See what is the content for the DNS query. There are 6 packets inside this trace file. So what can we do with it? We want to have a look. What is the IP address of the DNS query message sent? So what is the IP address? We can observe here, right? So do you have any specific question? Because yeah, that's how we figure out what is the IP address of it. You can see this one is our destination. So that's how we send the query. And you can have a look of the details of it. It's not very important. We just focus on the information here and the destination. Yeah, how can we know it is the default DNS server? Yeah, because I guess you didn't have a look of the question itself. Do you still remember here? What is the IP address of the default DNS server? It says it's this one, right? Then we compare with it. Is it the same stuff? I think so. So that's how we know it is the local server. Yeah. Yeah. So we don't have any question for exercise 2, we can go to the exercise 3. The question from Han Chen says the format in exercise 3 means we need to enter the dig. Okay, I know what you mean. We will have a look at it later. I will explain how can we use the dig command in detail. So let's just go through the question one by one. So for the exercise 1 and exercise 2, we don't need to make the submission. So you do not include them in your report, okay? So we just start from exercise 3. Because we have talked about the DNS query before, right? How can we, why should we use a DNS for it? So in the browser, it's very easy because they will make all the stuff for us. But what if we want to do the DNS query by ourselves? So here are the tools. We can use the dig command. So how to run the dig command is very simple. You can like run without any parameters. It will give you some results, right? Uh, last time we came to here, we talked about the flags. It's very important, and the query amount, which means how many query did we did in this command, and what is the answer. We have 13 answers, and the other information here, you just set the amount of the query and answer. And you can have a look of the details for the answer. So in the question session, we don't have any information in the question session because we don't have any parameters when we type the dig command, right? And yeah, let's see what is the response. You can see we can find a lot of answer here, right? There are like about 20 rows of the answer. So what is that? It's our root DNS server. So if we have no idea where is the website, what is the IP address of a website, we will go to this server, ask them one by one, see if they know the answer. And the additional section, which means you have some additional information for the answer section. As you can see here, the j.root-server.net. So how can we know what is the IP address of this DNS server? So we can figure out in here. We just go to the j.root-server.net in additional section here. As you can see, it's in here. So we can figure out what is the IP address of it, right? So we can use the additional section to help us to understand the answer section. Does that make sense? And you can also see there are some numbers in here. It is port number, so you don't need to worry too much about it. All we need to worry about is this kind of stuff. What is NS? Which means this thing is specified as a NAND server. And what is A here? I may ask, what is the A here? And what is the AAAA here? So we can go back to that table, right? If you still remember, you can know the Quadra A is the IPv6 address, right? So it specifies the type of this answer. For the A, which means of this one. So make sure you can understand what is the type of the answer. So you know what is the name server, what is the A and Quadra A, something etc. And here are some metadata at the tail. You can see how long that we take to do this query, only 1 microsecond. And what is the server and when, something like that, and what is the message length. So it's really like really similar to the HTML response, right? You have some header, have some content, have some like metadata of the response, but they are just in different different formats. So now we know how to have a look of the response of dig. Then we should have a look of how to use the dig command. So the simplest one is to use dig clear. So use dig plus an IP address or an URL. Let's say a URL, google.com. Then we run it. So we run dig command for google.com. So let's see how it goes. Just go through the header. We don't care too much about the header, but the flags, okay? Nothing special here. It's a response and it's not official answer. That's all we can figure out from the flags. And yeah, it comes to the question section. So this part is specify what is our request. Our request is about the google.com, right? And we ask about the A, which means we are asking about the IP address of google.com. So that's our question. And see what is the answer for that. You can see the answer is very directly. They gave us an IPv4 address directly, right? Pretty easy. So that's the answer we want to see. And in the authority section and additional section, we can see more information about google.com. In here, we can see what is the name server of the google.com. You can see google.com, the name server of it is ns1.google.com. So if we want to figure out what is the IP address of Google, then we need to go to this address, okay? And we can also go to this one. So they are in different row. We can choose one of them to ask. And what is the additional section here? If you still remember, it will give us some additional information of the authority section here. So we may ask, what is the IP address of ns1.google.com? Because we have already know what is they are the name server of Google. Then we may ask them, but before we ask them, we may need to know what is the IP address of them. So we can figure out here, right? Just search this table and we can know what is the IP address for the name server of Google. And here the other information of the query. Nothing special. So that's how we interpret the dig command. So do you still have any question? So what we care is this part, right? The answer section. If we still have other question, like we want to know the additional information, then we may need to have a look of the authority section and additional section. But normally we will only care about the answer section here. So that's the easiest way we use dig command. Okay, so the next thing is, what if we have different requests? Like, because we can not only query the A type of record, A type records. Do you still remember the these different kinds of DNS records? So what if we want to know what is the, let's say, the real name of the server? And we can add another parameters at the end. Let's specify the C name here. So we run this command. So we are requesting the server asking about the real name of google.com. And here are the answers. That's it. So we can add lots of different type behind. MX, what does this mean? Which means mail, right? gmail.com, something like that. And it will tell us what is the MS records for this, for the google.com. So does this make sense? So if we want to specify a kind of the DNS record, so we just put it in the end. If we only care about the IP address, we can put A or put nothing, because the A is the default value. So once we know this much, I think we can do a part of the exercise. For example, this, let's have a look of the question 1 here. So what is the IP address? Easy, right? We will simply run the dig command for this IP, for this URL. Simply run this command. Then we can figure out, is there any IP address of it? That before, all we care about is the answer section, right? So we can see there are 3 rows inside the answer section. What does this mean? So at first, we are like questioning what is the IP address of this address, right? And we got an answer here. And you need to specify this answer is in C name, canonical name, which means it is the real name of this URL. So then we need to figure out what is the IP address of this real name. Then we do another query here. You can see it is the result of the first row. And we query this one again. So what is then we get another answer. It's still in the C name, right? So this one is the real name of this one. So we need to like continue to the query. So we just copy this answer and do the query again. So what is the IP address of this website, of this URL? And finally, we find the A records, which means we find the IP address of the server, which is this one. So let's draw something to make it clear. So what happened here is we may need to have a look of the output here. So the first answer is ecs.berkeley.edu, right? And we come to the next one, we call it live ecs. The third one is the fe.edge file. And finally, we got an IP address. So what happened in here is we figure out through the DNS query, we figure out we are questioning about this one, right? This one is our question. Then actually, this website is pointing on this one. So we can directly visit this one and we will get the same result of this one. Does it make sense? And this one still pointing to another one, another URL. And this URL is pointing to this IP address here. So where come from here? So if we visit this website, basically is visit this IP address, but here are the records that we can find. You can visit any of them to get the same result. But for our machine, we need the IP address. So this IP address, no matter which URL you enter in your browser. So why they like doing this to their server to make the thing complicated? So why they like put a lot of layer on it? Do you have any idea? So we come to the second question. Yeah, because for most of us, the first domain name is very easy to like remember and understand, but the second one and third one is really hard to understand. But they apply in this layer because they can do a lot of stuff, like they can apply different server or different service into the same alias. So they can apply lots of service in different URL, and then they can attach it with it. So they don't need to modify this domain directly. So it's like good for the convenience of development. And come to the question 3. No, other than the answer section here. So basically just ask what can we know from the authority section and the additional section, right? I think I have already explained how to read them. So what we need to do is just specify the type of the answer is name server, right? The name server of this is this. Then we can find the IP address of this stuff in the additional section here. And see this one is this one, then the IP address is this. So basically we can combine these two sections to get the IP address of their name server. So you just describe this thing in your report. And what is the IP address of the local name server of your machine? Can you see that? What is the IP address? It's just at the end of the query. Yes, for this question should be easy to you. So let's have more questions here. Let's see. Then for the other question, what is the DNS name server for this web page? So we just dig different stuff, right? Stuff from ECS berkeley.edu. Let's try to run this at first. Yeah. So can we find the name server of it? Yes, we can. We can find in here. We can find the name server for it in this part, in the authority section part. But what if we want them to show on the answer section? Because in the answer section, we're asking about the IP address instead of the name server, right? So do you still remember we can add some parameter at the end of the dig command here? I should delete it. We can add some parameters at the end, right? We can put the ns at the end. So our query will asking about the name server of it. So they show in our answer section right now, but actually they are the same if we do not put a parameter. But yeah, they just show in different section. Doesn't really matter. So I think you can answer the further question by yourself once you can like understand all the stuff here. So I'm not going to explain more details about question 5. Yeah, but feel free to ask if you have any doubt. And what is the DNS name associated with this IP address? So you may simply run the dig command like this, put the IP address. Let's see, is it any answer section here? Nope. So you can see there is no answer for that. So how could that happen? Because the dig command is used to query about the URL instead of the IP address. So if you want to do the reverse query, because we're having an IP address, but we want to know what is the DNS name of the IP address. So we call it reverse query. So how can we do? We can add another parameters here. Can you see that? -x and run it. So we can see we got an answer here. So just go through the answer and see what is the result. So that's how we query an IP address instead of an URL. Just remember the parameter x -x. You can also like run the help, see how many parameters that we can use here. So let's come to the question 7. Run dig and query the CSE name server for the mail server for yahoo.mail. Okay, so it seems a little bit complicated now. So what should we do? We are asking the CSE name server about the information of Yahoo Mail, right? So how can we designate a staff? So at first we need to know what is Yahoo Mail. The domain name is yahoo.com, right? So if we simply do the deep command is like this, yahoo.com, and yeah, probably put an MX here because we are querying about the mail server, right? And here are the results. Here are the MS records for yahoo.com. So, but our question is, we need to ask the CSE name server, right? So how can we specify a server to ask? Then we need to have a look of our command again. So we can put an add parameter here plus an IP address of the domain of the DNS server. Okay. So that's how we ask the same question with a specified server here. Simply run it, then that's the server we are asking. Does it make sense? Yeah, it's just kind of syntax stuff. Once you know it, it should be pretty easy. You can see the server is this one. If we run without run without that command, the server will be different. So that's how we specify which server do we want to use. And the question 8, yeah, just run the same command in question 5. So you can do it by yourself. Just remember what is the syntax of it. We use an add command, right? Add here. So to specify, we want to ask this server instead of other server about this question. Does this make sense? And we come to the question 9 right now. So we want to ask about the authoritative answer. So we want the official answer from Yahoo name server, right? So how can we do that? So basically, we want just the of the name server of Yahoo. So as we know before, all we need to do is combine the authority section with the additional section to figure out what is the IP address of the name server of Yahoo, right? So we just combine these two tables here. Just choose a random name server of Yahoo here, probably this one, ns2.yahoo.com. What is the IP address of it? It's in here. So it's sig is this one. I just copy it. So we just run the dig command at this IP address. So 68.142.152.55.16. So we are asking the name server of Yahoo about the yahoo.com, about the Yahoo Mail, right? So we are running this command to do the query and run it. Then we can see the header here. Can you specify any difference of these flags? As we said before, what does the double A means? This means it's from official name server, right? So we can trust this answer. Because we are asking about the yahoo.com. Okay, so here are the answer. I'm not going to read through it, but that's how we do the query. Do you have any question? Okay, I guess we don't have any question. If you do, just type it. We just go to the question 10 and 11 here. Basically, just asking us to do the DNS query of the drum csc.usw.au. So we need to figure out what is the IP address of it. Or this one, you can choose them. Choose one of them. So first, let's come to the first step here. So find the name server of the root. We call this root domain. So let's just do it. So first step, just use the dig command to figure out what is the root DNS. So we just put a dot here, then run it. Oh, sorry, about the name server instead of the A records. So we can see a lot of outputs here. It's for the root server. You can see a dot here, which means it is. And we can combine the additional section below and figure out what is their IP address. Easy, right? So what is the next step? We need to query this name server to find the official answer from AU domain, right? Because we can specify double A in that flag. We can run this and add one of them. Yeah, sorry. We need to specify the IP address of this and ask one of them the answer of the its child domain, which is AU. So how can we do this? It's pretty easy because it gets stuck. So we need to change this .au to our destination website. Is one of the website, let's say drum00.cse.usbu.edu.au. Okay. So we just run this command here. And we can see the answer of it is AU here, A.au here. So we just choose one of them and seek the IP address of it. Just do the same stuff again, change the IP address. And keep running. And then we can see .edu.au, right? So we are keep going. We are like reaching our destination right now. So just keep changing the IP address here. We run this one. You can see we come to unsw.edu.au right now. So if you keep going like this, you'll finally find the IP address of the drum00. Sorry, I put the wrong one. It should be DRUM. But yeah, but the step is the similar. It's similar. So what we do is we just keep changing the server we asking. And finally, we will find the flag have double A in the flag. Then we will reach our destination. Okay. And the question 11, you can do it by yourself. Just simply search it. Obviously, the answer is yes. But yeah, you need to explain why. Yeah, I think that's all for the exercise 3. Yeah, sorry, it took a lot of time, but I just want to make it very easy to understand for everyone. So I will like have a shorter version in the YouTube. So you can save your time by watching that. So let's do the exercise 4 right now. Okay, let's have a look of exercise 4 here. Yeah, looks very hard to do it, but once you know the techniques, it will be very easy. So if you have any experience on the programming, especially for the web server, it will be easier for you. But yeah, if you don't know anything about it, you'll be fine, because this one should be a pretty easy one. It will take about 1 or 2 hours to understand all the stuff. And yeah, so now I will teach you the key step of it. You may find it very hard at first, but yeah, once you get it, it will be super easy. So let's have a look of our goal at first. We want to have a web server in this exercise, something like this. So we can run our web server with a port, right? We can put like the web server we had in previous lab. We can run it with a port number, and it can also return some HTML stuff to us, right? Place an HTML file, and it can also return image from it. So we are required the web server is able to return a web page as well as a PNG file. And it can also return the 404 error message if we visit and a stuff that doesn't exist. So how can we do that? So basically 3 requirements. The first one, we can read the HTML stuff. And the second one is we can return a image file. And the third one, it can print the error message if we visit stuff that is not exist. Looks very complicated, but if we get it, it should be like pretty easy. So we just want to achieve them one by one. So at first, we just want to have a server at first, right? We have some material that you can find on the top. So just go to top side. And you can find a link in this part. Click here. Can you see that? Click this link. And yeah, just go through them. It will introduce some sample programs of SOC programming. I'm not going to have a look of them, but yeah, you can see there are lots of resource for the network programming. But yeah, if you don't feel it very hard because there are too much things in here, right? But let's just have a look of one of the example here. Let's have a look of the TCP stuff. Run this one, Python 3. I think Python will be the shortest one, and yeah, pretty easy to understand. You can see there are lots of comments here, but what are they? We just probably copy them and paste them in our IDE and run them. I think this stuff is very similar as the code that we used in previous lab. We can start from the line 1. Yeah, it just designates a server port, right? And then do the initialization of the object. And the server binds a port here. So the server now is listen on this port, and yeah, and it runs the listen method here, which means it will start listen from now. And the one means we can accept at most one client to access this server at the same time. Then we run a while true, which means we will keep doing in the while loop here. We'll keep running this kind of content inside here. So what is this stuff here? Yeah, the code is connection and address is .accept, which means we can accept some TCP connection here. And the sentence, we can receive the content from the client and make it to upper size and send back to the client and close the connection. Okay, so yeah, probably we can play around with the sample here. Let's just download it and play around with it. Download it here and download it here. So we open it in the folder. You can see TCP client and TCP server here. We run a terminal here. Simply so get stuck. Give me a sec. TCP server. Right? Okay, and it says the server is ready to receive, right? So we run another terminal here. The left side is the server. The right side is the client. So we run the client here. So Python 3 TCP client. They ask us to input a sentence. Let's say hello. And we can receive a message back from the server, right? It says hello. And we can run the client again. Send another sentence, say, yeah, and return another sentence from the client. So now we can know how it works, right? So first we run the server, and then we can run the client to connect to it. So we can do some modify with it. Let's say we want something to print on the server side. So how can we do that? You just modify the server, TCP server.py, open it with a spider. You just want to do some modification. Once we receive a connection, we can like print. We here are here, and it could be ADDR. So once we get a client, so we can print something. Let's see how it goes, and run the server and the client again. As you can see here, once my connection is established, we can see we can print. We get a client from this address, and we can send the sentence, and it get back to us and close. So we can keep modify the stuff. So we want to how about to print the sentence when we get any sentence. Sorry. Seems very laggy here. And then, yeah, we just print any message if they can here. And we also print message if the client disconnected. Let's see how it goes. We just do some small modification of it and run it again. It will clear. Run it again. Sorry. It says it is already in use. This one sometimes happen. So we can change to the staff to the port to another one, like 12001, because we didn't queue the program really well. So sometimes it will happen. We just change the port number. It will be okay. And we also need to change the port number. Just change this one and save it. And then we can run it. You can see once we connect it, it will print the message. And once we send the message, you can also print it on our server side. And once the client disconnected, it will also print a message here. So that's how we change the server. So in our lab of this week, so we will do a server like this, but we will do a lot of modification of it. We need to support to return an like HTTP request, right? Not only accept a simple command like this, a simple sentence like this, we are going to accept the HTTP stuff from the client side. So which means we don't need to have any this kind of thing. We don't need to have the client here. We only need to have the server with a browser. So we want us to visit the server with our browser. So we can put the IP address of the server and with the port number here. We can visit. It says, it doesn't work. Yeah, but as you can see here, we got a message here, right? We got a message here. This message is like this. So we just want our server can interpret this kind of message. So if you can understand how Python works, that should be pretty easy, because all we need to know just interpret the sentence here. Obviously, it's a get command, right? So let's just do something to it. We can use, let's say, the sentence here. Let's just change it. It's not sentence anymore. It is the request, right? We just change it to request. Sorry, this one is client. I shouldn't modify the client. We should change the thing in server here. So what we need to do is the sentence change to request, because it's a request. So that's just doing nothing right now, and do not send back anything for now. So we just receive the stuff and see how it goes. Yeah, just run it on another port in case. So we are running here. So we open the browser, input a port number here, enter. It doesn't work, right? Doesn't matter. We just have a look of the report. Here we can print the message. It says it will request. It send us a request here. So what we need to do now is we need to interpret the request here. So the first thing we can do is we can run a split, right? Request dot split. So we can split the line on this one. Okay. So how can we do that? Let's put it to here. All we care is about the first line, right? Is it a get command or not? And the second line, the host. Actually, we don't care about the second line. We only care about the first line. Is it a get request or not? So we just put it in a, because we only care about the first line. So we put it index here, 0 index, and save it into a variable here. Let's call it request info, and we just print the info here, and we don't print other stuff here. So we just do some modification and yeah, only print the first line of the request and see how it goes. And run it. Run it. Okay, already in use. We just change the port number. Change to another one. Okay, so simply visit with the browser and function to return. Great. We don't have anything to return, so that should be pretty easy. Yeah. It says an error here, a type error, because we didn't like decode it because it's in the byte format. So we need to decode it first and then split it. Simply rerun it. And just keep modifying it and see how it goes. Yeah, we got a client and we can get the information here, right? The get HTTP 1.1. So now all we need to do is to get to like set a if command or something like that. We can print the if command and set if get in this kind of stuff. So we can say it's a get request. So you can use the RE regular expression to do the comparison, but in here I just use a very naive method to make sure you can understand it. So if the get is inside the first line here, and And then we can like get this kind of stuff for them, right? Because if they, we can find this kind of stuff. So we may use another library. We call it OS. Import OS and SYS. So we can search if they have this kind of stuff. In here, we asking about the root. So probably we can give it a name of something like ht index.html, because we are required to return the HTML, right? And see here, what is the get request here? Is index HTML. So we need to have a look if we have index HTML in our folder. So how can we do that? We can use the os.path.exist with the file name, right? The file name should be this one. So how can we match it? How can we match it? But in here, I strongly recommend you to use the regular expression. So you will do it by yourself. But in here, I just do a very naive method. So don't copy my code. Okay, it's not very good. But yeah, but it still works. So in here, I will just do the request. We need to extract this kind of stuff out from the request, right? So we just split file name equal to the info dot split, and we split it with the space. So the first item is this one, the second item is this one, the third item is this one. So we will get the second item. So index is 1, and see if this kind of stuff exists or not. So if this stuff exists, we can say we can, that's like we can print something. We have this item in our folder, and put the file name here. Yeah, and just rerun the server and see how it goes. Reload doesn't show anything. That's normal because we don't have response. Yeah, you can see we didn't print this kind of stuff because we don't have any file here. We should put an else here, because if we don't, we also want to show something. We don't have this kind of stuff. Okay, so reload it and back to here. Sorry, get stuck. Load it and back to here. It's 06. So you can say, we don't have this file, and we can modify it. I realize I have a mistake here because we have the dash here. We don't need this one, right? So we can do some modification. dot replace. We don't want this symbol here. So I just add another method, just do some modification of the str to make sure we can extract this kind of stuff from the str. So you will have your own method. Don't copy my ugly code here. So we'll just run it. Run it. Then we can see if they have any results at our client side. We don't have this item, right? We don't have index. So how about we create an index file here? Yeah, we just change a file. Let's call it index.html. So we just create the index.html here in the folder and run the visit again and see what is the output. You can see we have this item in our folder, right? So how can we send it to the client? How can we send it? So in here, we may need to get an index file because we have already an index file in the top. Just download it. Download this one. Download it. Show in the folder index one. Yeah, let's just delete the original one. So now we want to return this kind of stuff to our client. So I will do it right now. So be careful. Just have a look how we return the stuff, because if we have this kind of stuff, then we want to return to the client, right? So how can we do that? Do you have any idea? So it's the method of send. So we can socket dot send what kind of stuff, because we want to reply them. Just HTTP, what is the response looks like? We will return the HTTP protocol at first with the version number and the data code, right? 200. Okay. And yeah, that's the first line of it. And the second line should be, what is that? Let me think. Yeah, we should send the file. So we'll use the socket to send the file. So how can we open the file? We need to open the file here. Open the file. Let's call it file name. Read only with byte. Use a with command to make sure the file will be closed as file as f. Yeah, so we just send the f. Yep. Yeah, then we need to modify what is the socket. So our socket is, I think, is the connection here pressed. Yeah, we need, it's this one, the connection socket, right? So when the client connected to us, we will get a socket with an address. So we can use the socket here to send some message back like this. So let's see how it goes. We just change the port number again and stop it and run it, ready to receive at this place. And then we can run it. Running, but yeah, didn't show any results. See how it goes. Yeah, it says a byte object is required, not str. So we have an error here. So we just dot encode because we want to convert the str into a byte. So just stop it and run it. Just change to another one. See if we can get any results. So if not, then we need to double check. It's by like, so we still have some trouble here. Oh yeah, sorry, sorry, I should read it. So read, yeah, because the file should be opened like read. Yeah, now should be okay, I think. Let's just run it in 7. Yeah. So in here we can find the output here, which is the content of index.html. So that's how we modify the server from the original one. You can see we didn't add a lot, but yeah, the process is a little bit complicated. You need to change the thing one by one and test it. It's not very easy, but yeah, you can see it's not very hard. So we still have 2 different tasks at the end, right? We still need to be able to return the picture of it, but I think it's already ready. Let's try with a random picture. Just save this image at our downloads here, mimi.png, and let's see if we can get it. PNG. Yeah, you can also visit the picture of it, right? So with this code, it can work for the first 2 tasks. Okay, so you can see the key step is to understand what is the connection socket, and then I use some if command to see if they have if they have any content required in the first line, right? To interpret the request command from the browser, and then I return something with the open function and return with the HTML response format, HTTP response format, sorry. Yeah, uh, yeah, so if you can understand them one by one, row by row, that should be easy. So in here, I just do some very stupid str manipulation. You can do it in a wise way instead of use the split and replace stuff. So it looks very complicated here, but what I want to do is to extract the file name from the request. We can do it like with the regular expression or other stuff. Shouldn't be that complicated. And in here, use the connection socket to send back the stuff. The task 1 and 2, and for the last task, you can try it by yourself. Basically, just to add something here, we want to send a 404, right? You just basically copy this line, just change it to 404 bad request. Then yeah, that's our task. Let me think. What other things should I say? Yeah, just don't copy my code directly. I want to at least just type it by your hand, okay? Because I know it's from the beginning, it's very hard to learn the socket programming. Since all the stuff is very complicated and hard to understand. Yeah, but we don't need to worry too much like this. The first line, or we don't know what is this, but we just need to remember it. That's how we like do the initialization and how we bind the port. So it's just a fixed method to create a server. We don't need to know a lot of things about it. Just know how to use it. And if we can understand each row of the code, that will be very easy. Okay, as you can see here, if we delete the comment, it will less than 20 rows to finish this program. So just let me know if you have any question. So for the lab, we will not check very hard for the plagiarism on the code, but for our assignment, the code will be like similar than this, but it will be a little bit complicated than this, but it's still the socket programming. So make sure you do not copy any code from anyone. Yeah, but for this lab's code, just make sure you type with your hand, then you will be fine. So if we find you just simply copy the code from somewhere else, so you will get 0 mark. Just make sure you type the code by your hand. And try to understand all the stuff here. So my method is quite stupid. You need to improve a lot of stuff here, like how to extract the information and how to make sure it's the GET request and how to accept the port number. The port number is a fixed value here. You need to change it, right? You need to accept a parameter outside from the program. So just let me know if you have any question here. Yeah. Do you want to share your screen? I can stop the sharing right now. And yeah. Oh yeah, of course. It looks very confusing. Yeah, I can. Uh, Let me just have a very quick demonstration here, probably. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So let's just create a new file and play with it. Imports RE, so it's regular expression here. Let's create a just copy a request, right? Because we want to see. Uh, yeah. Where can I find a request? Let me think. Uh, so let's say we only have the first line of the request. Is that okay? We only have this kind of stuff. Yeah, and the str s equal to this one. Save this file. And how to play with it? With RE. So all we want to get is the first stuff, second stuff, and third stuff, right? Uh, so there are lots of uh, like content about the regular expression online, so you can search by yourself. But the one useful stuff of it is the dash W. So we can use this. We can call it this IEG. So we use this pattern. Probably I should call it pattern with it. Let's say print the output of the RE dot search with the pattern first, and the second parameter is the S, and see what is the result. Is that yeah, the match results we match a get, right? Because our pattern is like this. So W means we can match the number and the alphabet, and we can play around with it. Like what if we want to match the file? We can like write a very long pattern like this. We just the first pattern is like get, so it will match with the get directly. Let's say uh, run it, run it. Yeah, it will match get. So if we can put index here, index.html here, it will match the stuff directly, right? And it will tell us the where is the place. So how can we like match them? Not sure what we should match. Maybe, probably because we don't know the file name, right? But all we can know is they have a get before it and a space with a dash here. Yeah, so we just put it here, and we can use a W plus. Do you still remember this one? So it can match at least one number or at least one alphabet. So let's just have a look of it, how it goes. So it can match anything here, right? It can match with this kind of stuff. And what if I delete .html and see, can it still work? No, because it cannot match dot, right? So we want to allow have some dots inside here. So we just change the pattern to here. So just run it. Yeah, so we can match it. But what if we don't want this part? We only want to get the file name. So we can have a quote outside of it, right? Quote outside of it, then run the results still the same. But how can we extract the first one? So we can use the group method. Group method, the first one, first group, which means we extract the content from the bracket. So that's how we get the index.html. So you may need to spend like 1 hour to play with the regular expression before you really understand it. So in here, I guess you don't know what is the W means and what is this kind of brackets, and math is really messy, right? So you can easily understand what is get because they are the exactly same stuff in the string. But what is this kind of brackets? Very confusing. Yeah, that's pretty normal. So we are not trying to matching brackets here because you can see in our string there is no brackets. But why should we put some bracket like this? So I'll explain one by one. Probably I will delete the other stuff and just leave this bracket here. So in here, we know W means we can match the alphabet plus the numbers, right? And here is the dots because we know some file may have come with the dots like this .html or .pdf, something like that. So we want to match either the number and the alphabet and the dot, right? So we use this bracket to put it outside of it to allow it to match. So we just simply run it, but we need to delete the group right now. So you can see you can match the G, right? Because the first. So how can we match more stuff? Like we want to match as long as we can. So how can we do that? So we can put a number behind it. Let's say we want to. So we just put a bracket and put 3 inside of it and run it. And so you can get the length equal to 3. Yeah, and what if we don't know the length of it? We can simply put it plus, which means at least 1, and run it at least 1. So we can still get the first word, right? So why can't it get the second word? Because there is a space over here. So it will start from the left side to the right side and match them one by one. So that's why we use the bracket outside. So once you can understand this pattern, so we go to the pattern 2. So now we want to use this pattern to match the index.html. How can we do? We can like simply put the start of the string here because they are always the same stuff. And now we want to match up the file name here. So we just simply copy the pattern to here and see can they match or not. I should put it pattern 2, right? So you can see we match this kind of stuff. So we get a whole string here, but all we need is this part, right? We don't want the get. So that's the reason why we put a bracket outside of it. Three. Brackets here. Here, you can see the difference. I put a bracket here. So why should I put a bracket outside of here? Because I want to extract the file name here. Right? So if I run with the pattern 3, you can see nothing different because we need to use the method of it. We need to use the method of group and put a number 1 inside it because we want to the first bracket content. So the first line output is from here, and the second line output is from here. So that's how we extract the thing from the pattern. So it's very complicated with the regular expression, but once you manage to use it, it will be very powerful. Yeah, it's not only for this course, but also you can use it for a lot of other courses. It's very powerful tool on the text manipulation. So I think you can spend like 30 minutes to get familiar with it. So firstly, you need to learn what is this kind of pattern. Like you need to learn what is this kind of bracket means, right? So what is the plus means. So it's just some concepts that you need to remember. And secondly, you need to play with the RE library. Yeah, there are lots of examples on run it one by one. So I guess if you can spend like 1 or 2 hours on it, you will be like totally understand what I'm saying here. And yeah, it's a very powerful tool that I think you can use it on your assignment for this term. So if you can are able to use it in your assignment, there will be like a very powerful tool for you. But don't worry too much if you feel it's very complicated. You can still use other method to manipulate the text. Yeah, in my mind, it's really worth it because yeah, it's very powerful. You can search anything you want once you manage to write the pattern by yourself. You can write the pattern as you want, then you can search everything you want in the string. Yeah, and yeah, at the very beginning, you will find it very hard to understand, especially for this kind of pattern. Yeah, it's pretty normal, but we will just start from the like easiest one. As you can see here, I already give you the answer. Yeah, just keep studying it. You will be fine. You'll find it like once you get familiar with it, it will be easy for you. Not really complicated. As here, I just use a pattern with a single method, right? I run the search method and I use the group method to output the strings. So once you play with some example of the RE library, so you'll find it, oh, it's pretty easy. And we don't actually know a lot of stuff of it. We just need to learn some like basic usage of the library and how to write a pattern. Shouldn't be that hard. Yes. So at first, probably you can just play it with you can use the replace method of the string, right? You can use the split method. Yeah, that's total. You can totally play with the basic Python to manipulate the stuff. But yeah, once you get the job done, you can try to add the regular expression into your stuff. But just make sure you finish your server at first, okay? So don't worry too much. You can use the stupid method here, like this. It looks very complicated. Yeah, but still work. But as you can see here, if we have some trouble on the input, this method will not gonna work, right? Because it can only match in specific case. But don't worry too much because we don't test the error and any errors inputs in with the lab. But we will test the error stuff with the assignment. So that's why I recommend you to like try the regular expression here. Yes, so I suggest everyone just get started from your lab, especially for for this one. So I guess you can like have a try of it tonight or tomorrow. So if you have any doubts, just come to my lab of tomorrow and ask me some question. Okay, you will get a link on the GitHub. It's from 17 p.m. So just feel free to ask me any question if you have. So I will try my best to help you to get the highest mark. And yeah, and that's all for today. Thank you for coming, and I will see you next week. Or you can come to tomorrow. We can discuss any question we have. And yeah, if you don't have time to like do this stuff tomorrow, you can like, if you still have some question, just join any lab or post your question on the forum. Yeah, and we'll try to get back to you very soon. Okay, thank you so much. See you.